Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Ape Huncho, and this is the 6-7 County Lines case. Now, if there's one thing we can all agree on, it's since 6-7 adopted the drill sound way back when, and eventually would go on to become pioneers in the scene, it would be that a lot of their members have been jailed off for various crimes. I mean, out of all the drill rap groups or artists that I've ever heard of, 6-7 within their music, pretty much since the birth of the genre, have made a long list of people who they shout out in different songs, and of course they're shouting them to be freed from jail. If you was around for the earlier days in UK drill music, then you'll remember a lot of the comment section would make comments such as, "The way 6-7 called out all the mandem in pen, it's like they're reading out a school register," or "Literally the whole of 6-7 has been in pen at some point, they just rotate who's in." So as you can see from earlier, it was established that a lot of 6-7 members were in jail or had been in jail, and like Dimsy points out in his song Mad,
90 man on one case, I swear I'm going mad.
And today's video sees 16 people tied up in one case, which includes 6-7 members R6,
3 postcodes, 4-door truck, let's lurk on Lambeth map,
Rocko and C Rose. Although reports do claim that more people involved in the case are linked to 6-7, and in fact they go on to say that at least 8 of the people involved in the case could be seen in 6-7 music videos, that being 2 legendary UK drill songs of all time, WAPs and Let's Lurk. Now, as you guys know, this is a county lines case, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you watching will know what a county line is, but for anyone who's unfamiliar with the phrase, a county line is where illegal drugs are transported from one area to another, often across police and local authority boundaries, although not exclusively, usually by children or vulnerable people who are coerced into it by gangs. The quote county line is the mobile phone line used to take the orders of drugs. Importing areas where the drugs are taken to, are reporting increased levels of violence and weapon-related crimes as a result of this trend. So in a nutshell, normally what we see is drugs gangs from London, but not exclusively, because they come from all major cities in the UK. They go to smaller towns or villages which are located in the counties, but sometimes they stay within the city, and they basically go and sell drugs there, normally using people as runners to sell the drugs, which gives the runner all the risk when it comes to getting robbed or getting arrested and things like that. So as you can see, just having one of these phones could have the potential to rake thousands of pounds in, and the NCA actually estimates that a decent county line could rake in around £800,000 in profit per year. In this case, there were actually 5 lines, and one of them was based in London, and because of this and various other factors, the NCA would actually class 6-7 as an organised crime group. So what were these county lines? Well, there was the Psy line, which was ran from London into Bognor Regis, with 25-year-old Conall Bambogue or C Rose as the primary owner. Chris Thomas controlled the line for short periods in C Rose's absence, having worked his way up from a runner for the gang. He was responsible for the resupply of drugs to Bognor Regis and oversaw the transportation of people to run the physical dealing, working with Casey Lee. Phone records show that Casey regularly updated Chris on the profit made and the amount of product remaining. She also frequently travelled between London and Bognor Regis to resupply the line. Robert Allison, Darnell Bailey King, Tevin Nugent and Taylor Mackey all helped run the line. Taylor was found to be present on every identified journey carried out by Thomas, usually acting as the driver. The next line was the AJ line, and this was fully owned by Chris Thomas and would sometimes operate in towns and villages on the borders of Berkshire, Hampshire and Surrey. It was usually active when either Thomas, Taylor or Tevin were in the area, and unlike the other drugs lines identified in this case, the AJ line is the only one where the owner spent extended periods of time in the dealing location. The next line was the Pepsi line, which was run by David Mundell between London and Medway in Kent. It was reported that he used a number of people's homes and runners in the area to store and sell drugs. In November of 2018, he was found with 362 wraps of heroin and the phone running the Pepsi line. Sergio Diakite was linked to the Pepsi line after he was located inside an address which was linked to the line. He was found with large quantities of crack cocaine and heroin. Analysis of his phone showed he had regular communication with the Pepsi line. The next line was the Jeezy line, which ran between London and again Medway in Kent. This was ran by Shemaiah Bell with the help of Kyle Milton. Jeffrey Allen was also linked to the line after he was stopped in Chatham and was found in possession of 16 wraps of drugs and a mobile phone which linked him to the Jeezy line. Reen Cohen had his home raided by police and was linked to the Jeezy line after he was found to be in possession of 600 wraps of drugs. Examination of phone call data showed he was in regular contact with the line. During the course of the operation, officers were also able to shut down a local phone line which was run by Mohammed Jallo, or R6, and this was located in Tulse Hill. The report doesn't make it clear how Reese Walcott Holder, more known as Rocko, or Taif Arawusi were linked to the case, apart from Rocko was labelled as having managerial roles in the operations, and C Rose was also labelled with having a managerial role as well. Either way though, after everyone had went on to be arrested, 10 of the 16 would plead guilty to conspiracy to supply Class A drugs, and so the charge of participating in an organised crime group wasn't pursued by the prosecution for these 10. However, R6, Taylor, Darnell, Tevin, Robert and Jeffrey pleaded not guilty, and so a trial was to go ahead. And on top of the charge of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs, they would also go on to be charged with participating in an organised crime group. In court, Sam Willis prosecuting said from May to November 2018, the defendants were, quote, part of a gang operating out of Brixton, but also of a number of counties in the south, including Kent, Surrey, Sussex, Berkshire and Hampshire. The court heard how the group took over addicts' homes to use them as bases from which to deal the Class A drugs from, which is a typical tactic according to the police. The prosecution said members of the gang often moved into the homes of local addicts, and this would be known as cuckooing. Continuing, sometimes the operations are overseen by members of the gang, and there are a number of county line dealings in Class A drugs. The court heard that there were 4 main phone lines used by the group, that being the Psy, AJ, Pepsi and Jeezy lines, all of which supplied cocaine, heroin and a range of other drugs, and it was heard that the Metropolitan Police were able to take down major players by working through pages of call data and tracking the phones being used to sell the drugs. Upon raiding certain addresses, it was heard that 200 officers had attended one of the raids in South London in November of 2018. Yes, 200 officers showed up at one address on one of the raids. In court, it was heard again that during the course of the operation, the Metropolitan Police were able to take down the line which was run by R6. That's all that's ever told in regards to court hearings, but reports do give a somewhat lengthy statement from the judge which gives a bit more of an insight. So after the 3-day trial at Inner Crown Court, everyone who pleaded not guilty would actually go on to be found guilty of the charges that were brought against them. In regards to the whole group, they were actually sentenced over the course of 3 days. Judge Benedict said the evidence in the case demonstrates the entrenched link to the 6-7 gang and drug supply. All the defendants in this case have been convicted of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs in counties to the south of London. They were connected by the link that many of the defendants can be linked to a South London gang known as the 6-7. Journeys were made by car from London for the purposes of stocking individual supplies and assisting with dealing on the ground. Several members were also involved in assisting in supplying drugs for the 6-7 gang. It would be then C Rose was jailed for 6 years, Christopher Thomas was jailed for 4.5 years, Rocko was jailed for 4 years, Shemaiah Bell was jailed for 4 years and 8 months, Taif Arawusi was jailed for 3 years and 4 months, Kyle Minton was handed a 2-year prison sentence which was suspended for 2 years with 200 hours unpaid work and a 15-day rehabilitation requirement. David Mundell was jailed for 5 years. Reen Cohen was jailed for 7.5 years, including 5 years for an additional firearms charge, and this was apparently due to a sawn-off shotgun being found at his address, which was reportedly within reach of his own young children. Casey Lee was handed a 2-year prison sentence, suspended for 2 years with a 15-day rehabilitation requirement and 200 hours of unpaid work. Sergio Diakite was jailed for 3 years and 4 months. R6 was jailed for 4.5 years. Taylor Mackey was jailed for 4 years. Darnell Bailey King was jailed for 3 years and 6 months. Telvin Nugent was jailed for 4.5 years, Robert Allison was jailed for 4 years, and Jeffrey Allen was jailed for 3 years. But that was the 6-7 County Lines case. If you guys like this video, give the video a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this where we do these one-off crime stories, let me know some more stories that you'd want to see down in the comment section below. And if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy Huncho, and I'm out.